Previously on Laotian Emotion. There we go. And it made a big mess. Hey guys, I'm Jesse, the Laotian Emotion, and this is my 1994 Mitsubishi 3000 GT. Today we're going to take off the upper intake manifold and try to get to that second bank of cylinders right underneath it. It's going to be a pretty easy install or distillation, just depending on how everything goes, and hopefully everything will go smoothly. So off camera before I got here, I took off a whole bunch of the intake ducting so it'll be a little easier and wouldn't have to focus on that since I've already done that in a previous video. So the area of interest I'm going to be looking at are these two screws and the surrounding screws. All of these fasteners on the top of the intake manifold are 12 millimeters. Now unfortunately, my car only came with 4 of the necessary bolts instead of, the 7 it should come with. But, it's whatever. And make sure you're doing this on a cold engine. We're torquing bolts into aluminum, and it's very important that when you're torquing into aluminum, it's on a cold engine. Aluminum is a pretty soft metal, and if it's hot, you could probably over-torque it by accident. So let's take these 4 bolts off and see if we can pry off the intake manifold. That wasn't very stuck at all. And look at that. It comes right off. Now, unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the way preventing us from really looking down in there. But let's try to clean up some of that. So the biggest thing that moves when I'm pulling on the intake manifold is the whole throttle body system. It's only held on with about 4 bolts, so I think if I take that off, it'll be much easier to move the intake manifold around. The throttle body is also held on with 4 12mm fasteners. That's one. That's 2. That's 3. And that's the last one, number 4. Now the throttle body should just move right off the intake manifold, which it does. Now unfortunately, there's a throttle linkage in the way, so I'll have to undo these 2 fasteners and push that out of the way. Those 2 throttle linkages are held on with 2 10mm fasteners. careful, there's a ground wire from the intake manifold to the body of the car, so don't forget that. And with that, the intake manifold should be free. And it's unfortunate, there's still a whole bunch of things attached to it, like this sensor. I don't really know what the sensor does, but it pops off just like that. What else is this attached to? It looks like just this ground on the end and another sensor. And after that, we should be good. A good tip that I have is I don't get bolts getting lost. I like to thread them back into the original holes they came out of. That way, in case I get interrupted, I don't lose my position. And I'll do the same for the 4 throttle body bolts. This side is the only side we have left with things attached to the intake manifold. On this side we have a sensor, I just disconnected it, and another sensor, which I'll also disconnect. Now we have these 2 little cable ties that keep this last wire in place, and just like that, our intake manifold should be free. We got 1 more vacuum hose in the top, and that'll be it. So a trick that I have for getting off these random vacuum hoses is a good blunt nose pliers make short work of these awful connectors. You can squeeze, move the entire hose clamp back. Let's try this one more time with the blunt nose pliers. Just like that. Now we have our hose connector right into the manifold. Just pull gently up and it should come right off. And just like that, your intake manifold is removed from the car. Now that we've got the intake manifold off and out of the car, I'm going to be doing some polishing and making it look nice and brand new. I have this drill with this wire wheel attachment, so hopefully we'll be getting this to look brand new again. And with only a few minutes of work from the drill, we have it looking much shinier and much nicer than before. So I'm probably going to spend the rest of this afternoon polishing and sanding down the intake manifold to get it looking like from this side to this side.
March
So now that all the bolts have been removed from the intake manifold, I'm going to use my precision sledgehammer to try and loosen it up. Seems like it's a bit stuck. It doesn't seem to want to budge yet. I'm going to try taking off this individual throttle body connection to see if that'll help. This is what controls all my individual throttle bodies. And there's just a worm gear inside here. It just screws on like that. So these can all move freely. I took all the bolts out connecting these together. It should come right apart. I see the culprit. In between the two, I see a thin layer of RTV. That's what's sticking and keeping the two pieces together. I'm going to try very carefully a small pocket screwdriver to try and pry the two pieces apart. Here's the pocket screwdriver. I'm going to try and pry around carefully to not scar the aluminum. Oops. So just a quick update. I moved from that bench to this bench, and I've been really working on polishing these three intakes really well, and I think the color's coming out really, really nicely. As you can see, all the old clear coat and oxidized paint just really takes away from the finish. Now I know this is going to be unable to be seen on the car, but I still want to do just as good of a job. Unfortunately, disaster has struck the YouTube channel, and somehow I lost the last bit of footage of me polishing up the intake and putting it back on the car. Next episode for sure, we'll be putting the intake back on the car and inspecting the valve covers, making sure that the camshafts and hopefully the head gaskets are in good condition. See you guys next time.